Okay, so Descartes, he came up with this idea, I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. And it is a very influential idea. And I think it, unfortunately, can lead us in a misleading direction, and that is into this solipsistic skepticism where we say we can't really know that the external world exists. We can't know that other minds exist. All we can know for sure is that we think, and that we therefore have our own self-existence, independent of the world or other selves. I think to say that that's somehow the most fundamental place we could begin is mistaken. It's famously said, at least by Kierkegaard as Johannes Climacus, that modern philosophy begins in doubt. And Kierkegaard was drawing from the Cartesian tradition to say this. And it does seem that doubt is what led Descartes to this skeptical position of saying all that he can really know for sure exists is his own mind and the clear and distinct ideas which he thinks and perceives. I think, while in a sense I don't disagree, though where I agree is that what we have first is experience, and in the modern context, because Descartes separated mind from matter, if we're going to be consistent about that, we've got to end up with some sort of Kantianism where we say we can never really, we can only know the material world theoretically, and that practically speaking, we live in a world that is permeated with mind and purpose and teleology and morality. Kant was basically saying, look, the world is an ideal world, at least for human beings, because we can only know it through these innate forms of intuition that are rational. So, in that sense, this is just a further radicalization of Descartes' skepticism. But see, it leads to solipsism. Because for Kant, when I say the world is permeated by mind, that's only, an individual mind, your mind, or my mind, but separately. I only relate to you morally as another mind because of certain moral feelings of guilt and a sense of duty that I feel intrinsically within myself, within my own soul, which was placed there by God. I don't really interact with you. I am good to you because I feel internally compelled to do so because of this sense of being guilty if I don't. So it's still a solipsistic position. I would rather begin just with experience, and in experience itself, I don't think we're justified in saying that I am thoughts independent of the world, or especially independent of my own body. I think with my body, I perceive with my body, I intuit and imagine and sense with my body. And so I see no reason to be in this initial state of skepticism about the reality of what I experience with my body. And I think the experience of other bodies is always already intersubjective. We don't interact with other people as persons only because we've intellectually or reflectively granted that they are humans, that we've actually consciously encountered them and then said, could be a robot, let's see, it's moving pretty realistically, alright, they're real. that's not how it works. That's not how it works. In reality, we encounter people immediately as agents, and we feel like we have we can be held accountable by them for our own actions as persons, and so we always already assume that we live in a world of other subjects, and this is true even without having to interact with humans. I think that immediately the world itself is sort of pan-experiential, or even animistic, in the sense that it's full of presences. And we could be sort of reductionistic about this and say that, well, we've evolved to detect agency in the world, but often any particular detection of agency could be mistaken, right? And this is true, but when I say that we experience presence in the world, not just of other persons, other human persons, but other animals, even the weather itself is experienced immediately in a pre-reflective way by us as a presence. It's an agency that is outside of our control. And when we talk with strangers on the street, the weather is what we share. It's sort of like that organism which we are a part of, and so can always relate to one another about. It's a common or shared context. And so it has an undeniable presence in our lives in that sense, and I don't think that it's a mere projection, because again, see, this is getting back to that same dualism that I want to avoid between mind and body, or between mind and matter. We don't have to be skeptical about the idea that what we experience is the actual world, that we actually experience and commune with other subjects besides ourselves. We assume that from the beginning. That's just how reality is actually felt and perceived and experienced. The Cartesian dilemma is really, what's happening is that we're being confounded by our own language, by our own metaphors. And so when I say that all language is metaphorical, what I mean is that, let's begin with this word is, or the word being. The concept is, or the concept being. When I say, the rain falls, that's what it does. It seems like a pretty literal sentence. Or if I were to say the rain is falling, what I'm, literally doing is equating rain, this, it's a substance, but it's water, right? It's drops of water, and I'm equating that with this motion, downwardness, and we understand how these two ideas come together, and we understand a thunderstorm or a rain cloud, but it's a metaphorical construction. Two words are equated, or at least related, in a non-literal way. To take it literally would be to lose the meaning. So, whether we're talking about Darwinian evolution or a dying and rising God, or the archetype of a dying and rising God, we're going to be using metaphor. And I don't think that's to our own detriment in terms of actually understanding what it is that we're trying to say. I think it's a given. If we're going to have meaning, it's because of difference and the new novel identities which can be produced by difference. When I say one thing is another thing, it's never true in a literal sense.